Hello, Sacrilicious listeners. This is Snurts. I just want to let you all know that I have been having issues with my microphone since updating my MacBook to the latest operating system. As a result, this episode has a lot higher input volume than I usually do with the audio quality, and it will cut out and pop and do all sorts of weird things. So, apologize for this. Hopefully, I figured everything out, and for the next episode, we'll be back to our normal self. So, thanks for listening and enjoy the show.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
I'm in danger!
They sure do, Skip.
Welcome to Sacrilicious with Robin and Snurts, a Simpsons review podcast. I'm your lovable nerd Snurts, aka Joshua Stearns, and joining me is the equally delightful Robin. Don't have a cow, coward!
Yo, Josh, how are you doing today?
Good, man. We have a minor heat wave in LA this weekend, so it's nice to have a minor one versus the extreme that we last experienced. But none of that really matters compared to what the East Coast was feeling with that horrible hurricane, Helene. I knew I would
Hurricane
screw
Helene.
that up, and I said that before we were recording, and I'm saying that now as we're recording.
It's kind of a
Helene.
French pronunciation, I believe.
I knew the French had something to do with this.
Helene.
Those goddamn cheese-eating surrender monkeys.
Yo, yes. That was just a lot of places in the Southeast here that were just demolished.
Yeah, not cool. We haven't seen something like this since Katrina, is what my understanding is.
Yeah, it's
which is a bummer.
gnarly.
But hey, luckily we can be here talking about The Simpsons. And if this is your first episode, here's how it works. One of us will pick an episode of The Simpsons to discuss. We go through the plot, provide questionable impressions, and point out our favorite bits. So this week, Robin picked from season 3, episode 17, Homer at Bat, directed by Jim Reardon, written by John Swartzwelder, with a first air date of 2/20/1992. So once again, you picked a Swartzwelder episode, which maybe you do like him more than I do. I don't even know anymore.
All I'm saying is that Facebook said that I am now in the Schwartzwelder fan group on Facebook. Yeah. I got a badge or some shit. Yeah.
Wow.
It was really important. That's all I'm saying.
Okay. Well, why did you pick Homer at Bat?
Well, that's because of the time of the year it is, Josh. It is October, and that means it is time for baseball playoff season.
Yeah,
yeah, it worked a little bit there. So it is the baseball playoffs, and this is a baseball episode. And we wanted to do that for October. October baseball is the most exciting. It's the most thrilling. It's the most absolutely frustrating thing that you could possibly imagine. My Atlanta Braves squeaked into the playoffs in just the most dramatic of circumstances. Not even the last day of the year. They had to play the one day in between the last day of the season and the first game of the playoffs, a doubleheader versus our hated rival, the Mets, to squeak in. It was amazing. And then they lost the 2 games and were out within 48 hours after that. But it really, truly is one of our favorite times of year. It's wonderful, especially when your team is in it.
Sure.
It's intense and it's dramatic and it's phenomenal fun.
I would say in general for the big sports leagues in America that the playoffs is really the most entertaining part of it. Because that's when all the stakes are on the line. There's no more, we'll get them next game, because there is no next game. Everything has to come to an end. And when you have that finality, the players actually go all out. Like, I'm not a big baseball fan, but I love hockey. And NHL playoff hockey is some of the most amazing things that I've ever seen from a sporting event. But for all the baseball fans out there, if you have hope, great. If you're being crushed, better luck next year.
Our sincere condolences.
And there's some fun facts about this. This episode, Homer at Bat, went through a lengthy production process, and it was recorded over several months because they had to get for the availability of the 9 baseball guest stars that they had on here. So basically, when one of these people were playing the Dodgers or the Angels, they would go into the studio, record their lines, and that took place, like I said before, over a series of months. And they kind of joked about it too, where they said like each player basically had about 5 minutes of recording to do, and then it was about an hour of writing autographs for the staff.
Yeah, it was. This is a shot in 1992, or no, it aired in 1992, shot in 91, I believe, or over the course of the 2 years,
Yeah, I mean, if
many
it's
months.
airing in
Mm,
February, they did the work in '91.
yeah, and
Yeah.
uh, that time, these players that they got were the biggest players of baseball. So it's unbelievable. You could imagine getting the best athletes, the LeBrons and the Serena Williamses, who've both been on, Tom Brady too.
Well, and they mentioned
Um,
that too. They are
hmm
quoted saying, they being like writers, showrunners, people who are behind the scenes of The Simpsons, that they were thinking like, at most we'll get three. And
hmm
then they got nine. And so, that kind of shows you too the power that The Simpsons were starting to obtain, because by season three, they were able to get nine baseball players to, I mean, granted, it was probably only about an hour of their time, right? Maybe two.
I know
Uh,
traffic in LA is killer.
yeah, okay, three. But put it all together. There's also parts where you have all the baseball players talking at the same time, so there's like editing challenges that go into trying to make them sound like they're in harmony. And we'll get more into that when we discuss the episode.
All right, so these are the players. 1991. This is my height of when I first really got big into baseball and loved it so much. And the players they got were amazing. So starting off at catcher, we had Mike Scioscia. At first base, we've got Don Mattingly. Second base, Steve Sachs. Shortstop, the Wizard Ozzie Smith. At third base, Wade Boggs. In left field, Jose Canseco. In right field, Daryl Strawberry. In center field, Ken Griffey Jr., for Pete's sake. And the pitcher, Roger the Cheater Clemens. But that is a phenomenal lineup there. And not only they were eager to do that, they were really excited to do it because most of them loved the show. And I read an article in the New York Times about a writer they have, Daniel Brown, who wrote a book on this Simpsons episode. And he talks about talking to them and how fondly they remembered this experience. He did it 20 years later. And all of them were really nice and excited about it, except for one. It was Jose Canseco because he's a dick.
Right. And the reason Jose Canseco was considered a bit of a dick, first off, just a general comment. The people who were in the recording booths with these baseball players felt very intimidated, because I'm assuming they're like me, like doughy, like kind of weak guys who are not super athletic. So you get in there with like these modern Adonises, and they're like, he's super big and buff. And I don't know, it was kind of intimidating. So there was kind of a size differential. But Jose Canseco also had his scene rewritten, because originally he was going to wake up with Mrs. Krabappel in bed, and that's why he misses the big game. But instead, his wife at the time,
You gotta get him away. What's gonna happen?
yeah, and his wife at the time objected. So then they wanted to make him more of a hero. So they did the scene that they ended
Mm-hmm.
up putting in the episode.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Another fun bit is they also tried to get Nolan Ryan, Ricky Henderson, and Carlton Fisk as
Oh
other
my
players,
God, Ricky
but they
Henderson would have been amazing.
and they turned it down. But
Yeah.
this is, for me, my most knowledgeable area of baseball, because this is when I was collecting baseball cards like a madman. Like I have
Me
I
too.
have a Jose Canseco rookie card, along with probably rookie cards for some of these other players. And I guarantee you I have anywhere from 6 to 12 cards for each one of these players. So
Yeah,
it's very
100%.
fun to kind of see, like, stuff that I idolized as a kid mixing in with like my favorite show ever.
Were you a
Another
baseball fan as a younger child, or did it
Yes, I
start in
was
that?
I was a
So,
baseball we would go to Dodger Stadium a lot because it was the most affordable game in town. The Kings were charging like
mm-hmm,
60, $70 a person, where you
mm-hmm.
could go into Dodger Stadium, get in the blue section for like 20, $30 for your entire family. And there was
Yeah,
five
one
of
hundred
us.
percent.
And
$5 tickets.
and my godmother Grace would take me to one baseball game in the front row, right behind first base, every
That's
year.
amazing. That's so fun.
And so, like, I have like autographs. I got Barry Bonds' autograph on a card. I
Mm-hmm.
have Will Clark was doing batting practice and hit me with the ball while I was eating my personal pan pizza. Um, so I really, that was when I was very much into baseball. And then as I got older and life got more busy, it really is hard for me to watch a slow game that takes 3 to 4 hours to complete with a season that's north of 100 for games. I
162, Josh.
That's
That was
fucking ridiculous.
150.
I'm sorry. That's ridiculous. I was gonna say like 175, but I thought that number was too big.
Well,
Uh,
my entry into baseball was very different than that because I hated baseball and all sports as I was a kid. I wasn't good at them. I didn't have anybody who taught me about them and what was fun about them. So I just hated sports until 1990. One of my best friends, he had a cousin who was like 17, had a car, little crappy hatchback. We crawl into the back and we go get $5 tickets at Fulton County Stadium where the Braves played because they were terrible,
sure.
worst team in baseball, and tickets were $2 to $5 in the upper deck, and there was nobody there, so we could walk down to the lower level and watch from there.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
he was my best friend, and he got me into it. And then the next year, the Braves blew up. It became the worst to first Cinderella story in 1991, and that's when I truly fell in love with it. I was watching it with my parents every night. We had phenomenal announcers, Joe, Pete, Skip, and Don, and the team really played the game well. Our Bobby Cox was an amazing manager, and it was that detail and love of that minutia that that still feeds me today. Is watching those little things I get excited about.
Yeah, I mean, my cousin Jared played
160
baseball
games.
avidly throughout
Yeah.
his youth, and if it wasn't for some injuries, I mean, he could have probably gone even further into college if he desired. And
Mm-hmm.
my aunt Barbara was the person who sits there and like keeps score in the catalog and whatnot. So a lot of baseball in my family and growing up, but just not so much these days. Now, granted, if I'm at a sports bar and there's a baseball game on, like there could be worse things to watch. Another fun fact too is in October 22nd of 2017, Springfield of Dreams: The Legend of Homer Simpson was a 1 hour long mockumentary about this episode in the style of Ken Burns' Baseball, and it was celebrating the 25th anniversary of the episode and Homer's induction into the National Baseball Hall of Fame and Museum. So
Mm-hmm.
I think it's goddamn awful that Pete Rose, rest in power, is not in the Hall of Fame, but Homer Simpson is.
It's it's the script itself was inducted, and Dan Castellaneta is signing on behalf of Homer Simpson. Was like, finally, what took you guys so long to elect me? You know,
Yeah. Yeah, so I thought that was a little weird.
that's cool.
I also
And
have
this,
one more fun fact, but I think I'm going to save it till when we dive into the episode.
yeah, let's do that.
Yeah, and the last thing I want to say is this episode is often named as one of the show's best, and it was the first to beat the Cosby Show in the ratings on its original air date. In the DVD commentary, Matt
That's
Groening was like,
amazing.
"Who gives a fuck?" Al Jean was like, "I give a fuck. That's very important. Fuck that show. I win."
100%. That's huge.
No, it's very huge. And also, Swartzwelder is a big baseball fan, and he was back in the day
Mm,
rented out Major League Baseball stadiums so him and his friends can play games. How
that's
amazing is
amazing.
that?
How amazing is I chose another friggin' Schwartzwalder episode. I would love to do that, Josh. I bet you would too. It's like
Yeah,
if
I'm
football,
not even good at baseball. Like
I would,
my nose
I would,
playing pickle. Like I don't really like the sport. Like because
I'd
I'm
probably
actually.
like twist my ankle or break an arm or
Oh yeah,
something. But
We
I'd still go.
get to use the training room where we have the cool down ice baths and a great healthcare,
Oh
right?
hell yeah! They get a massage afterwards. Oh
Yeah,
yeah, we get to
yeah. Some
we get to
sushi.
shower together.
Oh well. All right. So moving on to the episode.
All right, so we start out. We have the entries actually in this one. I found a little interesting. Is it is our Bart's writing. I will not aim for the head, which I thought was just funny. One thing I thought about this because we talked about it before is that those entry lines now we've seen so many of them they wrote, but when they were coming out, we were very much anticipating them at the time. So I
Yeah.
think now they're a little less exciting for us, but I do remember them being so fun then, and
I mean, I
I
don't think
thought the
they're supposed to be like side splitting laughter. They're just supposed to be clever, or
yeah,
cute.
yeah, when they make you like,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, a little warm up laughter before we get into the deeper, longer, guttural
absolutely,
laughs.
bring you into the world. I did like also the couch gag where they all knock each other out running to the couch, and then Maggie kind of pops out of that, and sits on the couch, and they're all like passed out on the floor, knocked out. It's great.
Nice.
So, all right, so we open at our nuclear power plant, and there are donuts in the break room. Homer walks up, and we begin the episode, Josh, with a wonderful mmm, donuts. He starts housing them, and they're like,
Nom, nom,
Homer,
nom, 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 nom.
you're gonna choke. And then he's like, don't tell me how to eat donuts. And he absolutely starts choking violently and upsettingly. And Luke goes, Homer's choking again.
They are so blasé about it, you know. They're just chilling. Ah, this happens all the time.
And then just because it like, how do we save him? He's like choking. And like choking is a fear of mine. Like, and he's choking in it. It's a little upsetting. And they're trying to figure out, and I can't remember who it was. And Lou was like, somebody scare him. And then the random guy, who's the other guy? I can't remember his
I
name.
don't know. The guy with the glasses.
It's like, that's for hiccups. And they're just like,
Yeah.
and so they're like, isn't there like a board around here that tells us how to do this? So they go over, and there's a board with a poster about the Heimlich maneuver, which is very fortunate. But Liddy gets distracted by the softball sign-up sheet, which
And if
kind of
I can
starts off our
interject real
episode.
quick, so that Heimlich poster not only shows a lobster being flung out of the person's mouth, which is pretty funny, it's actually credited with saving two people's lives because in
Because
two
they were
separate
eating lobster?
incidents, no, they remembered from this episode the poster, and that sprung into their mind when they sprang into action and saved some people from choking. So
That's
The
amazing.
Simpsons saves lives is all I'm getting at here.
Absolutely. And ladies and gentlemen, if you don't know how to do the Heimlich maneuver, practice on random people in the street. Uh, so, uh, so they're like, "Hey, it's the sign up sheet for softball," and Homer like coughs up a fur ball. He's like, and he coughs it out, and he's like, "Ooh, softball!" Immediately, he doesn't even take a beat to realize that death was, close at
Big
hand.
lovable dog.
He is a big level dog. So Homer's very excited about this. And then all at once he's like, we're gonna do this, guys. They're like, Homer, we sucked. It was terrible. We were 2-28. And Homer's like, I know it wasn't our best season. And they were like, actually that was our best season, was 2-28. So they were terrible. But Homer says, don't worry, guys. I have a secret weapon. And everybody gets very excited about it, and they're signing up for it because they're imagining what the secret weapon could be, which I know you enjoyed. So there's like a
Yeah.
big glove and some spring shoes that he's
Yep.
hopping around the bases. And
And then Lenny needs to take home, like, all right, so you know how on our last episode we had the Dr. Marvin Monroe insanity test? I think he needs to go home with the Dr. Marvin Monroe homicidal maniac test because he's imagining Homer with a laser gun literally melting people like out in the outfield.
incinerating them.
I don't know how he's supposed to hit a baseball with a laser gun. That doesn't make any
The way he's
sense.
winning is by vaporizing all the other
So on the
players.
Sega Genesis, they have these two games that are a lot of fun. It's called Mutant League Football and Mutant League Hockey. And the best way to win in that game is to literally kill the other team.
Well, you get the award too, Josh. What I love is Lenny's chuckles. He's thinking about it. He's watching him just like mow down the other teams.
Again, homicidal maniac.
Yeah,
Maniac.
but it's the laugh that does it.
Right.
It's like an entertaining thing, but the way he laughs, you're like,
Yeah.
Lenny. So Homer's got his secret weapon, crux of this whole thing, and we go back to the house, and Homer's like, "Come here, boy. I want to show you something." And he pulls out a bat in a box from under a cabinet and puts it out. He goes, "Is it a bat that you made?" Now, this is a scene from The Natural. So The Natural
Okay.
was with Robert Redford, a massive Wilford Brimley's, and that's a phenomenal movie. A huge hit about baseball back then, about uh, somebody who's like a wonderkind. He was just a phenom at baseball growing up, and then he has an accident, not so much an accident that basically curtails his career for 20 years. But he had a bat that he made out of the tree that killed his father, and it was called Wonder Boy, which is what they kind of talked to
So
him
Wonder
about
Bat.
was him when he was a kid.
Gotcha.
And so Wonder Bat is that. So you see the same scene, and he's like, it all started last year during a terrible thunderstorm when I locked myself out of the house. What happened to me? And he's like, I was sheltering myself with a large piece of sheet metal. He's just Homer being a total idiot. And I ran for cover under the tallest tree I could find. And of course, the lightning strikes the tree,
Right.
and it knocks a branch off of it, falls to the ground.
It's very well
And
animated too, with the
yeah,
rain and the lightning storm and the little tree kind of glowing bits on the end where the
yeah,
lightning struck.
absolutely. So he's gonna do what he did in the movie, is make this homemade bat. But I like how he says, Josh. I think we both like this one where he says, "I put my homemade football on
Yeah,
hold to make a
it's so
homemade
sad. I wouldn't
bat."
give that to. I wouldn't even give that to a dog as a chew toy. Like it looked
Oh,
like
it
such a
looks terrible. It's
shitty.
like, yeah, it looks like an old garbage bag with like trash in it, wrapped up in a like duct tape. It
Yeah,
just doesn't look good.
it's almost like he took like 4 or 5 different carpet samples and like tried to stuff it with tennis balls to make a football.
So that he's produced it. His is called Wonder Bat as opposed to Wonder Boy. And
Right.
Bart, of course, is like, "Wow, how many home runs are you gonna hit with that?" And Homer's like, "Well, we play 30 games, 10 at bats a game, so 3,000 home runs." So so then we cut to the first game of the season, and I know you really enjoyed. They're on the field, and the ump is giving the rules
Yeah. So
for the softball league.
here are the ground rules for softball. You can't leave first until you chug a beer. Any man scoring has to chug a beer. You have to chug a beer at the top of every odd number inning. Oh, the fourth inning is the beer inning.
Wiggle goes, "Yeah, yeah, we know how to play softball."
Yeah, he's very indignant that he's like being questioned on how to play softball. Now, you used to play softball for the agency that we used to work at, right?
I
Was
did
there that
actually.
much
I
drinking? Was that much drinking
No,
in
so
softball?
we thought there was. So, two agencies, TBWA Media Arts Lab, TBW Shy Day. Shy Day had a team for years that I tried to get on,
Uh-huh.
and they were very full of themselves and weren't letting people in. And
Okay.
so I started a team at Media Arts Lab, and we had some good athletes on the field, and we thought we were going to go out there and like wipe the floor with everybody, and we got our absolute ass fucking beat because they were good. Like they went out there to
Sure.
play a sport. Like they weren't there to like chug and like wear long pants to play softball. And they're like, let's be good at this sport. And I loved playing softball. It was a good, very competitive sport that was difficult. And when you did well, it felt great. Like we had a
Sure.
great run. Loved playing softball out there. How about you? Did you ever play softball?
No, I am not a fan. I broke my nose playing pickle
Mm.
when I was young, and ever since then, I kind of have a fear of a hard ball coming towards my face. Maybe because it busted open my nose and blood was everywhere.
So
I
red meat with
also
a good time.
just was never really good at it.
Mm.
Baseball was one of those sports that I really struggled with. The ones that I was decent at was basketball and soccer.
Mm-hmm.
Everything else was just kind of mediocre at best. Even though like I was a good swimmer, but I was slow. I had an okay shot for water polo, but then it was inner tube water polo that we did at
Mm.
the local park instead of like
Mm-hmm.
actual water polo. So that's completely different.
Mm-hmm.
Even when I played pool for like 3 years on the regular and bowling for 2 years, I
Mm.
was very mediocre. I am not an athletic sports guy at
I
all.
mean, like I said, I wasn't into sports because I was bad at all of the main ones.
Sure.
Baseball, we didn't really play basketball, but footballs wasn't even close, and soccer. I mean, I was so uncoordinated. Soccer was just way out. But
Oh, and it's so embarrassing too because I played soccer from I want to say 9 to 18,
mm,
with like a year a break in between, and I never scored a goal. Because I was the slow, chubby kid who they always put in fullback, which doesn't make sense from a coaching standpoint. If you're playing soccer, you're going to put your fastest person in the front against all these chubby, slow kids in the back. What are we doing here? You put the chubby kids in midfield where they
yeah,
can kind of meander. You put your fast
absolutely.
kids on the front and the back. And I just
Yep.
never understood that whole like, oh, you're not very athletic. We're just going to stick you in the fullback position. I'm like, well, that's
Mhm.
dumb.
Mm-hmm.
And
Get in his
anyway,
way. Trip.
but anyway, I do enjoy some of the fun cop bits that we have during this initial
Because they're
softball.
playing their first game is versus the cops.
Yeah, it's Springfield Police versus the Springfield Nuclear Power Plant, and we
Wiggum's
also
up to bat.
yeah no that's what I was gonna say. Yeah, go for it. Wiggum's up to
Wiggum's
bat.
up to bat, and the police radio starts going off. It's like, calling all cars. There's an armed robbery downtown.
Yeah, and then he's
Wiggum's
like, "Turn off that racket," you know.
"Ah, shut off that radio. He's so perfect. We
They're like
love
doing a good job
Springfield
too, and they
police.
like fire the guns off every time they hit a home run or something like that. It's pretty good.
When they get a hit, they're like shooting the guns in the air. He's like, stop
Yeah.
that.
And we also have Marge doing her lamest Vince Scully impersonation. Oh my god!
Oh
Like I
god,
thought
and
sports commentators were bad, but Marge is really taking the cake here.
she's got like a VHS recorder, and she's doing like, and then that gentleman hit the ball, and now he's going in that direction. And Bart says, "Mom, let me do the play-by-play," and that would have been awesome. I would love Bart would be like, I think that he would probably use a few cuss words, the dams and hells and things
Sure.
like that. Maybe put on one of his accents that he likes to do, like old timey, like,
Yeah,
quick as a whistle.
that could be. I also could see him. He's like in this Lardo.
Exactly.
Because everybody's
100%.
overweight. Everybody's overweight.
Lardo
Almost.
number 1 does it to Lardo number 2. Exactly.
Yeah.
So the crux comes up here is that now the Springfield has the bases loaded in the ninth, and Homer comes up and he takes out his secret weapon in front of the guys. He's like, check it out, boys, my magic bat. And Carl's like, that's it?
Yeah, I love his line here. He goes, and I got an enchanted jockstrap.
Making fun of him. He's like, yeah, I got a magic bat too.
Also,
hilarious.
enchanted jockstrap sounds like some kind of weird, like DreamWorks Nickelodeon show.
It sounds like a night at the Eagle, frankly. So Homer comes up, hits the dinger, and it's wonderful. Very much like The Natural, when he comes up big and the situation finally hits the dinger and all the lights explode in the stadium and there's a dramatic, the music goes bum 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 bum. That soundtrack, which I wish we could play music from, but we can't.
Yeah, I also like how he's teasing the cops, and Wiggum tells Ed to get his license and registration.
It's fantastic. So Homer's the hero of the day, and back at home, they're watching the video on the VHS with Bart and Lisa, and him hitting it. He slows it down to like slow motion, and it shows his gut like slopping back and forth.
I love at the end too because his eyes open up because he had them shut and he didn't even know that he hit the home run and he was just kind of dumbfounded that it actually worked, which is pretty cute. It was really good.
It was hilarious. Yeah. And I know you liked the line there where Bart and Lisa are like fighting over who's.
Oh yeah, I want to get Dad a beer. No, I want to get Dad a beer. No, I want to get. Hey kids, you both can get me a beer.
It's Homer. It's a drinker. And what I like now is we get into the season of the softball team, and we have a bit of a kind of a montage with vignettes within it of them starting to hit dingers. Homer's hitting home runs all over the place, and of course, then everybody shows up with their own magic bat. Lenny's like, I got my magic bat off the piano. And Carl's like, my sister let me use her wooden leg.
Everyone's like really into it.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is that the team is killing it.
Yep. And we have a couple references too, like the old Babe Ruth, like pointing out to the outfield, but then he hits it into the other side of like he's pointing out the right field, and then it goes left, and then he changes his point and he points to the left. I thought that was pretty cute.
Hilarious. I love that. They're doing so well that the owner of the team, Mr. Burns.
Yeah, he's at a millionaires club, and I love the sign out front. It says, "You must have 1000000 to enter, like they're checking your bank account, uh, and all that kind of
He
fun
said
stuff.
the club is at the top of the Empire State Building, which I thought was pretty cool.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I missed that one. And he's talking with the owner of the Shelbyville nuclear power plant, which apparently these two teams are going to meet for the championship game.
I love that scene because the tycoons, Burns is mocking like, "We're gonna wipe the floor with you if we win the final game next week. We win the championship and you don't." And the tycoon I don't know what his accent was. It was a little odd.
Yeah, it's a
He's
little
like,
weird. I almost want to say he's Greek because his name is like Aristotle
yeah,
Amadopoulos, which is just
exactly,
very strange. And he's like, my gladiators will crush your men like 9 puny grapes.
exactly. He's like, would you like to bet $1 million on that? And Burns is like, well, if we're going to bet, why don't we make it interesting? And he's like, I mean, you don't think $1 million is interesting? And Burns is like, oh, I didn't hear you. I thought you were going to start with a smaller amount and then we're going to like haggle or something like that. No, $1 million is fine. So
Yeah.
they've got this wager on who's going to win the big game with big stakes, $1 million.
So Burns and them and Smithers are back at the plant, and Burns goes, Smithers, I've been thinking, is it wrong to cheat in order to win $1 million or $1 million bet? Smithers, yes, sir. Let me rephrase that. Is it wrong if I cheat in order to win $1 million bet? No, sir. Who should I have killed?
No. I love that scene.
Like Smithers is just straight up ready to murk some dude. Like, what's up?
Well,
Like,
this has the thing. He's like, no, sir. Like literally nothing he can do is wrong. But we have this wonderful scene now where he starts talking about how he's going to cheat Burns,
yeah,
and he's going to bring in a bunch of ringers to play the game. And this is where, in the article in the New York Times, the guy Daniel Brown wrote about how many nuanced references there were to baseball in this episode and the deep history. And so, of course, the older than sin Mr. Burns is like, we're going to get the best. And he has a lineup. He's like, we're going to get Honus Wagner, Cap Anson, Mordecai Three Fingers Brown. And they're all, of course, have been dead for 100 years.
yeah. Smithers is like, it's like, sir, I have to tell you, everybody is retired and unfortunately moved on.
I mean, Wagner played in the late 1800s, early
Yeah.
1900s. He was in on the Pirates. I mean, that's the cool thing about the history is when we can actually think about the fact that the Pirates were there 100 years ago, same team that's there now.
Yeah, and now this is also why they wanted Schwartzwelder to write this episode because he is such a huge baseball fan. Is that he probably has like this knowledge ready to go because don't they say like something like the third baseman's been dead for 130 years or something like
Yeah,
that? And he actually
absolutely.
did find a baseball player when this aired that was dead for that long. So it not only it's one of those jokes that are kind of based on history and facts, which makes it all the more fun.
Like Mordecai Three Fingers Brown, who lost two parts of two of his fingers in a mining accident.
And then Burns gets really upset, and he's like, "Damnation! All right, find me some good players, living players. Scour the professional rinks, the American leagues, the National leagues, the Negro leagues."
Oh God! Oh, Mr. Burns.
Hey, he's not racist though. He's willing to get talent from the Negro
Absolutely.
leagues.
Oh, absolutely.
Not everybody would
Yeah.
be up for that. So
He's blind to color.
yeah, evil rich millionaire guy, but not racist.
So so now we had the montage of our Smithers going around and find all the players. They get Canseco, and they get Mike Sosha, and they get Ozzie Smith and Steve Sachs. And again, if who doesn't know these players, is Jose Canseco. It was a funny one because at the time he was just the biggest star in baseball. He was the huge contract. He played for the Athletics on the I can't remember what they're called, the big bashers back then with Mark McGuire and a bunch of other players that were on that team that were amazing. So he was in there, and they're like, I'll offer you $50,000 for one game. It's like it's a pay cut, but okay.
Yeah,
But
so I also was trying to do the math on this, and I probably should have done this like earlier. But if you have 50,000, right, times 9, Am I gonna get that's 5,000, 50,000. We're looking at 450,000. So like out of that million, Burns is probably getting about half once he's done with expenses.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But you know, winning's the thing because there's a callback later where he's like, Sid's like, "What are you gonna do with the million?" He's like, "Oh, I don't know. Throw it on the pile, I guess." You know?
Yeah, that's true.
Like,
I also
it's
like
not the
how
point.
this is when the writers of this episode are establishing all of these baseball players, and they all
Yeah,
have like a little unique trait or personality or quirk that makes them stand
absolutely.
out as individuals.
Yeah, like you have Sosha, and they actually talked to the players about it who did the acting for the episode, of course. And of course, we talked about Kitseiko, how he was kind of just a jerk, and he had them rewrite it. He was difficult about the whole thing, but everybody else loved it. Sosha was kind of a guy who liked to do the workaday work, and so they have him like I always wanted to work at a power plant type place, and Smithers is like, we should talk. And
So maybe they
he,
didn't have to pay the 50 grand for Sosha, right? They just gave him a job and that was that.
exactly,
Yeah.
see right there, you know.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So we get Ozzie Smith is at Graceland. So Ozzie Smith, the great shortstop for St. Louis, he's like taking snapping pictures. He's on like vacation, which comes back later. We have Mattingly. They said they thought it'd be hilarious if he's a big hulking dude. He's kind of very very manly. So they have him at home with like an apron doing the dishes,
Right. And they
and
kind of mentioned in
he's
the
like
commentary,
man.
they mentioned in the DVD commentary that Mattingly was more than willing to play ball, right?
Uh-huh.
But he's like, why am I like the home buddy and Steve Sachs is in a band trio? Like, he's like, why don't I get something cool?
I love the Steve Sachs one because Smithers comes in. He's like, "How would you like to be a ringer on a small town company football team?" He's like, "Would I?" That's a really fun for baseball. I mean, these are the biggest players of the time, so that was a lot of fun. And so they're putting the team together. They cut back to the plant, and now Burns is introducing all of his new workers. I'm doing
Yeah.
air
I
quotes.
do love how he gives them like bullshit jobs too. He's like, janitor, security guy. We'll figure out the
Like
rest
he's like
later.
our new security guard, Roger Clemens, our new
Yeah,
janitor, Wade Boggs, our lunchroom cashier, Kid Gravy Juniors, and we'll make up the rest of these phony jobs
that's so
there.
funny. Uh,
And they're signing up for the softball team, of course, because that's why they're there. And he's like, now you have to sign up, go. And I love so she's like, but I'm here to run the contaminant encapsulator.
yeah, and then Homer is complaining over family dinner, and I like how Bart gets upset with him. He's like, basically, he's like, "Hey, you told me I could do anything if I put my mind to it." And then Homer's like, "Well, now that you're a little bit older, I can tell you that's a crock. No matter how good you are at something, there's always about a million people better than you." Bart, got it. Can't win. Don't try.
Homer's life lessons in these things are the most fantastic. Like the you tried and you lost. So the message here is never try. That's another one of
Exactly.
those.
Yeah, and that is exactly what it's like. And I just love how Bart gets like picks up on the message real quick. Can't win. Don't try. That's very fun.
So I love in the next scene. So then we're going to softball practice with everybody, and Homer meets the new right fielder, who is Daryl Strawberry, who we left out. He's like, "You're Daryl Strawberry," and Strawberry's like, "Yes." He's like, "You play right field." He's like, "Yes." "I play right field too." "So, are you better than me?" "Well, I've never met you, but yes." It's one of those scenes that the writer and the writer of the article and the writers, they loved that little back and forth. I think it's one of the funnier jokes of the players on there. And our Daryl Strawberry was known to be fairly arrogant back in the day.
Come on down to Crazy Carl's Secret Weapons Sports Shop in downtown Springfield. We'll give you the edge needed to dominate your friends and family on the field and at home. We have spiked footballs, wonder bats,
Piano legs, peg legs, legs,
8-hour-powered hockey sticks, cybernetic curling stones,
giant gloves, sticky gloves, and gamma gloves.
magnetic golf clubs, golf bag, grenade launcher,
Explosive balls, deflated balls, and balls.
bombastic billards, small bombastic billards.
Poison cleats, steel cleats, foam cleats, and much more.
All purchases over $150 get a free enchanted jockstrap, so don't walk, run to Crazy Karl's Secret Weapons Sports Shop in downtown Springfield.
So now that Burns is the new manager, he's so ridiculous of a manager.
Oh
And
yeah, I
like,
also love how he's wearing an old-fashioned baseball uniform.
oh, yeah,
I never heard of that team that's across his chest. I'm assuming it's something from like way back when.
you know what? Honestly, I did not even mark what that was. But
Yeah,
yeah,
they mentioned
absolutely.
something on the commentary, and they just pretty much all agreed that Schwartzwelder probably knew that that was some accurate baseball fact, and they just kind of dismissed it.
100%. It's definitely something you would see in like the late eighteen
Yeah,
hundreds with a it's a more blousy like shirts and pants, and they're kind of like I don't know what the style of cap is, but it's not your baseball cap like you see today. It's a
correct.
little
Yeah, it's
more
definitely something that
fluffy.
you would see in like a black and white photo.
Look
I
at the
also want to go
first.
on a rant too here, real quick. Baseball is the only sport where the managers and coaches wear the same uniform as the rest of the players.
Uh-huh.
And do we need to adopt that for other sports? Like, should we have like basketball coaches wearing a tank top and shorts?
Mm. It's so funny. Baseball is different. I
Yeah,
mean, 100%. It is.
it is very much so different than the other sports.
Yeah, and it works there where it doesn't work anywhere else. I have no explanation why. I have no clue.
We
I
could have
don't
had
think
Bill
we
Belichick in a jersey
can
all
that
this time. I don't, it's just kind of weird thinking about it.
we can have Andy Reid in pads.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and in like the hockey coaches wear suits right when they're behind the bench usually, and it would just look so funny if they had like this loose hanging hockey jersey. Like you wouldn't even take them that seriously, right? It's just like I cannot take you serious right now.
Oh, absolutely. The Miami Dolphins have a very slight coach. He's a great coach, but he's
Yeah,
a not big too. So,
that'd be
but
funny.
Oberns has one great idea, Josh, which is that all of the players are now going to stop drinking beer and start drinking a brain and nerve tonic.
Yeah. And I love how Ken Griffey Jr. just takes the bottle and starts chugging. And he goes, it's like, wow, it's like a party in my mouth and everyone's invited. And
That's
according
my
to,
line, damn it,
oh,
Josh.
my bad. But according to the commentary, Ken Griffey Jr. had a real hard time recording that line because he didn't know what it meant. And
You did.
even his father, who was with them at the recording session, was trying to coach him. And it still took a while to stick, which I thought was kind of funny.
Is within the way they weren't saying is that he's basically not a good actor. Now that stuff is hard because you're having to like say a line so it sounds real, and it's surprising how hard that can be if you don't hear it in your head, you don't know how to say it. Um, I've been in that situation, and it kind of comes down to like being anxious and things like that, and it is not a pleasant situation
Yeah,
because
but
everybody's like, "It's so
he still managed to get the line down though.
fine." Oh no, the line is brilliant.
Yeah.
I think this is the seminal line of this episode.
Oh,
Uh,
really?
because, and I mean, the whole thing with, he's like, Birds is like, it has been known to cause gigantism in rare cases. But Griffey tries it, he starts sucking on it like a bottle. And you're supposed to have chuggling it, and the animation on that is hilarious. But the line is, it's like a party in my mouth and everybody's invited. And this is the most quoted line I would say from this episode. And one that my friends and I, back when this aired, we would say all the time.
Yeah, it does sound like something that you would see in a soda ad, right? Where they're trying to appeal to the youth. They're like, Mountain Dew Code Red. Oh, it's like a potty in my mouth.
Exactly. It's
Yeah,
like a party in my mouth and everybody's invited.
yeah,
Oh, I love that
yeah.
line so much. It's up there, Josh, with my favorite lines in all of The Simpsons.
And we also get more basically montages and kind of like straining spliced with stuff. You like the hypnotist bit, right?
Yeah, yeah. The hypnotist was great. I loved with the earlier one where Burns is like showing the guy how to bunt. He's
Oh,
like, no,
right.
no, no, let me show you. And the ball comes in, hits the bat, and like goes flying backwards.
Yeah, and I think the player, I
Hilarious.
think that was Ozzy, and I think he kind of like just kind of gave like Mr. Burns like, "What the fuck you doing, old man?" Like kind of look.
It's like, oh, let me show you, kid. There's the bit in that where Daryl Strawberry like does the Angels in the outfield leap, and Homer's
Oh yeah.
throwing for a ball, and Daryl Strawberry does this graceful like leap into the air, and he goes off screen for a full like 3 seconds, catches the ball, and like floats back down. Homer's like, "That was my ball," and Burns is like, "Shut it, Simpson." And
Some
Daryl's
people
like,
have a bad attitude, Skip.
they sure do, Strawberry, because it was the funny bit is he's an absolute sycophant to
Yeah.
Burns,
And some of the
and he was
players, some of the other players really like the fact that they made Strawberry the suck up.
exactly because he was known for being, this kind of like a challenge, alcohol problems, drug
Yeah.
problems, arrest for guns, arrest for spousal abuse. Like
Yeah, all sorts of stuff.
he was he was not nice to the media or managers or general managers. He certainly didn't do what was always expected of him.
I
So
also
that
love how
that
he
just
calls
was
Burns
hilarious.
Skip. I just like him calling Burns Skip. I think that's just
I know,
fun. It just works.
because it's such a deferential like phrase when he says it. I love that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the hypnotist, which is very important later, when they're he's like, "You're gonna win, you're gonna beat Shelbyville," and they're like, "We will win, we will beat Shelbyville." He's like, "You will give 110%," and they go, "That's
That's
impossible. By
impossible. By
definition, we can
definition, we
only
can
give
only give
100%."
100%.
There was a couple of jokes like that we called out earlier in our show here that were the similar things
Yeah.
where what was the one at the ranch where they were in the cult. And it's a similar thing where they
Oh
had to
yeah,
do
the
something like
chanting.
that.
The leader is good. The leader is great. We surrender our will as of this date.
um, so then we have a little funny vignette here again of Mike Sosha at the plant
Yeah.
with Karl. And Carl's like, you're a ringer, but you're here every night busting your butt, hauling radioactive waste. And so she's like, it's a relief from the pressures. Another college of how like sweet these guys are in this episode and how they have very specific personalities in this. And he's like, the pressures of playing baseball, one mistake and the press is all over you. And then he spills radioactive waste all over the floor, which is let's be clear, would be a disaster if it actually happened.
Well, and the
And
fact that they're transporting radioactive waste in open wheelbarrows is a whole red flag to begin with.
It's great.
Yeah.
I love that about The Simpsons. And he spills it. Carl's like, "Don't worry about it." And Sosha's so pleased, like, "Oh, they didn't come down." And he's like, "Oh man." I loved that. There was another vignette at the ball field with the kids.
Yeah, so you have Ralph and Bart picking players for a game, and it just so happens that one of these ringers are walking by whenever it's Ralph's turn. So he's like, I guess I'll take Lewis. And it's like, I'll take Roger Clemens or whatever. And he's like, God, I guess I'll take Millhouse. He's like, I'll take Ozzie Smith, and all
I'll
the
take
players are
Sicko.
down. All the players are
Yeah,
down. Like,
they're all like,
like
yeah,
they're all high-fiving each other because they're on
yeah.
the same team. Like, it's
Yeah,
pretty
it's
funny.
you remember when you get picked, you'd be psyched, and like they're
Right.
psyched to be picked by Ralph for his team. It's
Yeah.
wonderful. I love that.
It's pretty funny.
So we end up now getting towards the third act of this episode, and we're at the last practice before the big game, and we get one of the other very well remembered lines, which is Don Mattingly, who does not have sideburns. Burns comes up to him. He's like, "Mattingly, get rid of those sideburns." He's like, "What sideburns?" He's like, "You heard me, you hippie." Is one of the lines that was very well remembered from this episode.
Yeah, I also like how Homer thinks he's so confident with his Wonder Bat, and it's one pitch from Clemens, and the bat is toast. It's just
It
gone.
just snaps in half in a
Yeah.
millisecond.
Now, I had a
It
little
is-
bit of a Mandela effect. Maybe it's not a Mandela effect or misremembering, because I thought the bat caught on fire and like a Looney Tunes like turned into a little matchstick.
Oh man!
But
Funny,
then I
'cause
was
it does.
watching it again, and I was like, oh, it just breaks in half.
It does singe, and they're little tendrils of smoke.
Little like smoke, but that could be from the
Yeah.
ball because he's throwing like a
Yeah,
fastball or
but
something
it's
like
definitely
that.
singed where
Yeah.
where it snaps there. Burns now being the great manager. He's trying to be like Casey Stengel, one of these great managers. Casey Stengel's kind of like, I think, who he's great manager who he's modeled after. He's like, take it easy, boys. Tomorrow, and again, this is the company softball game.
Right.
Tomorrow is the biggest day of our lives, the Shelbyville game. And he goes, so lights out at 7:30. Abstain from coffee, tea, and cola drinks. They pack a wallop. And Strawberry goes, they sure do, Skip. He goes on, he goes, before I post the lineup, I want to assure all of you who are not on the list that I'm very disappointed in you.
Yeah.
The worst managerial thing to say. Something was lacking. Let's call it heart. Strawberry goes, no hustle either, Skip. Daryl Strawberry in this episode is absolutely hilarious.
Yeah, no, he does a great job.
Truly hilarious in this. He nails the impetus behind the lines. I love it.
I also love how after this we get Burns, he's like going through the roster. It's a very like well lit scene, and he has a giant quill, and he's kind of just so confident in his plan. He's doing the classic like I'm gonna jinx myself monologue, villain bit, right? And so he's just kind of like, 9 players, is there a chance that like 1 or 2 might not make it? Sure, yeah, that's also 3 or 4. That's an outside chance, but 9?
Yeah, we have nothing to worry about. There's no chance whatsoever that 9 misfortunes will just befall all of our players.
Yeah.
Which, of course, leads us into one of the funnier bits of this whole episode.
Right.
Which is
And
montage
I just
of
love
all
this.
9 of them.
He definitely jinxed himself too. It's just like, oh God, I hope it doesn't rain.
Oh, 100%. And it's so funny that scene is so funny because he's like, 3 misfortunes? That could happen.
Right.
7, it's unlikely. But all 9, it's like, I don't know what's so funny about
So we're going to be going through this, right? And then 7 of the 9 have something wacky happen to them for these incidents. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to sound off one, and then we're going to talk about it. Does that sound good to you?
Cool. Yeah, it works for me.
So Sachs is thrown in jail for committing all the unsolved murders in New York.
So the scene there is hilarious, and I put out the whole thing is where he's walking around. He's like, "What a nice little town. Maybe I'll buy a home here when I retire." And he gets pulled over, and he's like, "What's the problem, officers?"
And Ed and Louie are super aggressive.
Yeah, he's like, "That's enough, smart guy." And Lou has the gun in his face. He's like, "Reach for your license slowly."
Yeah,
gun clap in his face. And
I also love his line too. He's like, you think you're a big cheese there? Hey, sexy boy. Like he calls him sexy boy. I love that line.
So they look at his license. They're like, oh, you're from New York. I mean, like the old cliche. Oh, you're from New York City in a small town, huh? I heard some guy got killed in New York and they never solved the case. But you wouldn't even know anything about that, would you? And he goes, but there's hundreds of unsolved murders in New York City. And that's when he goes, you don't know when to keep your mouth shut, do you, sexy boy?
That's the line. Yeah, that is so good. So
it's so good.
Then we got Sosha, who's hospitalized with radiation poisoning. If I could, and I like this one because he's like, basically he's like, will I be able to play softball tomorrow?
No. That was by Hibbert.
And then Hibbert's like, by tomorrow you'll be hardly able to breathe. And then he's like, darn, or something like that. Oh man, or something.
Man. And then immediately into the same room.
Correct. And Griffey develops gigantism.
This is what maybe the best image in this whole episode is him wheeled in a gown, still drinking the juice.
Yep. He has like
his head is the size of a hot air balloon. I mean, it's huge.
His forehead looks like it's 9 months pregnant. And he has like elephant feet and like Popeye arms. Like it's wild. So Conseco is just randomly walking in the neighborhood, and there's a house fire. And so first he saves the woman, and then he saves the cat, and then it keeps on going, right?
So it's in this order because I love this bit. I love this bit. She's like, "Help, my baby!" And he's like, "I'll save your baby." And he runs into the burning building, comes out with the baby. She's like, "Help, my cat! I'll save your cat." He runs into the burning building. And you start hearing piano notes, and she's like, "My player piano!" And he's like, "Oh man." And he runs in, and there's a callback on this one, and later when we go through it all, it cuts back to Kaseko, and he's pulled out the entire house and
Yeah.
set it up on the lawn. And she's like, the washer goes on the right, actually. It's devious. This woman is devious.
And then Boggs, as a classic Boggs persona, is at a bar and he's talking to Barney and they're having an argument about who's the best prime minister. And this is my favorite lines of the episode because it's basically Barney going, Lord Palmerston, Pitt the Elder. Lord Palmerston, Pitt the Elder. That's it, Boggs. Bam, knocks him in the face. And then Mo is just like, Pitt the Elder. And then he punches, he's like, Lord
Lord
Palmerston, and
Palmerston
punches Mo
punches him
too.
out too. The concept of them, and I was going to look this up and I did not, what their attributes were, these two greatest
Oh,
ministers
yeah,
of
I
England.
don't know either. Yeah.
Weren't you a history major, Josh?
Yeah, doesn't mean I know all of history.
Yeah, well, so I thought, I mean, it is the idea of them arguing over, I'm sure these were like 1700s, 1800s,
Sure, sure.
With the elder, who probably wasn't in the 1980s.
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
Liz Truss is no Pitt the Elder,
ridiculous.
I can tell you that. But anyway, I also like how Boggs in Always Sunny, it's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. There's an episode where they do the Boggs challenge where they try to drink as many beers as possible
Oh
and then
yeah,
go hit a home run like in
yeah,
LA. So they fly from Philly to LA and they're all just chugging beers and they have shirts with like how many beers they drank. And eventually Charlie is the one who does it. So is that true? Was Boggs like a known drinker?
yeah. I can't remember where I saw this, if it was related to this or not. But recently, there's somebody who's like, I wanted to go and try and be a major leaguer, and I asked several players, and Boggs was like, "You've got to drink a 12 back between Ricky Lake and like the evening news, and then go hit a home run."
Okay,
And but it was also like John Kruk was the same way. I mean, I don't think, honestly, I don't think they were like drinking that heavily like before and during the game,
sure, sure.
but I wouldn't put it past some of them, certainly. Mostly it was you go play and then immediately you start chugging beers all night,
Gotcha.
and that was their life. And smoking cigarettes at the time too. They were like chain smoking, fucking
Oh,
pounding beers.
the tobacco chew.
Oh
Doc
yeah,
Ellis pitched a
oh
perfect
yeah,
game on LSD. I mean,
oh
yeah,
yeah,
use
oh
is
yeah,
out there.
oh yeah.
So we
So
get Ozzie Smith really likes the touristy stuff, so he comes up to this attraction and he's just kind of like, you know, basically it's like what what?
it's Springfield's mystery spot is the
Yeah,
attraction where logic takes a holiday and all laws of nature are meaningless. And it's like a little tent, like
yeah,
like
like a
an
little
old
carny
breathing
tent.
tent. Yeah.
Yeah, and he walks in and immediately falls, and this guy just starts laughing. He's like,
I like it because he's like, ah, I love it. The guy goes, he goes, how long does it take? I'm in a hurry. The guy goes, once you go in, you may never come out. And Ozzy's response is,
yeah.
cool, give me a ticket. And yeah, there's a callback to that one too, which I'll do in a second.
Well, yeah, and then so also this happens. They show this later, but then Clemens is actually now a chicken by the
Mm-hmm.
hypnotist, so
Mm-hmm.
he's not able to play either. And what I liked about it is in the commentary, they were talking about how they made this guy like this big baseball player, cluck like a chicken as many times as they needed him to, because that's really Clemens with every cluck.
Well, there's I know, and the writer was talking to him about it. He's like, remind me of what my lines were. He goes, you clucked like a chicken. I was like, oh yeah. I love that bit. So there's a couple of callbacks they do in this scene. The first one before is they do a callback to our Steve Sachs in jail, where he's like, I guess we've solved all of the unsolved mysteries in Springfield. You're going
Yep.
away for a long time. And he goes, can I at least call my lawyer? And Lou goes, "You watch too many movies, sexy boy." I love the sexy boy reference. One of the yeah.
It is pretty amazing.
And then we get
Uh,
they're at the field and Burns like, "Where the hell is everybody?" And he's like, "Where's Ozzie Smith?" No, Smithers is like, "Mike Socha may not live. Steve Sachs is serving 6 consecutive life sentences without a trial. Ozzie Smith seems to have vanished off the face of the earth." And we get an image. I don't even
of
remember.
him falling in
Just
the void.
falling. It's like, because it is the void
Right.
of, and
And you see a
like
giant
E is
balloon,
equal.
E equals MC squared, and like giant balloon font. And he takes a photo. He's like, oh.
He goes, cool, click, ah. And he goes, what about Conseco? That's what you see back at the house, like rearranging the furniture on the lawn. And we get one of my favorite callbacks, which is Mattingly.
Shows up to
He's
game
like,
day.
"Get rid of those sideburns," and then he shows up and he shaved a strip through his
Yeah.
entire head, all over his dome, so that there's from sideburns to the middle, there's just like a strip of hair gone. He has like a little poof in the front and then like a mullet in the back.
Yep.
And it's all
It's
gone.
hilarious looking. And Burns still is so angry because right at this point, Burns is starting to panic. He's like, where are my players? Where are my players? And then he sees Mattingly
The one he
again.
has left.
He sees Mattingly again. He's like, Mattingly, I told you to get rid of those sideburns. Get out of here.
You're off the team for good. I love Mattingly right there because I still like him better than Steinbrenner.
Which apparently he really liked that line.
I bet. I bet. And they asked him about it, and he was like, "Did Steinbrenner say anything to you about that?" Because Steinbrenner was the owner of the Yankees. For anybody who didn't know, for decades, and he was a real meddler of an owner, which is never a good thing. And he was just a TV personality. He was a personality. He's bigger than life, a New York guy, and he was all over the place. And he was kind of an asshole as well. And he was, you couldn't have facial hair if you were on the Yankees, and so he was known for that. So it's a funny joke in that context.
Yeah, and there was actually a hair controversy
Mhm.
that took place after this episode released.
That's right.
And many people misremember it as thinking like, oh, The Simpsons, like, is the whole reason the hair thing started. No. That happened like a
Yeah.
year after this episode aired.
Yeah, Steinbrenner demanded that he cut his hair, and he didn't, and he suspended him and fined him, and it was another case of fortune telling by the Simpsons here,
Yeah, it's kind
which
of
is
like
unbelievable.
what we were talking about last time, where you used to have to wear suits when you went into your day job, right?
Uh huh.
And it was like from that 50s era where you're supposed to have short hair and not have a beard, and you're not supposed to be a goddamn hippie with the long hair and the sideburns and everything like that.
So, so we have a little vignette there too, Josh, that I know we both liked, of Homer getting ready to go to the ballpark, and he's kind of morose,
Yeah.
like quietly sneaking out of the house, and the kids are ready to go. He's like, "Oh, I don't want you to come because you're gonna just see me sitting on my worthless butt."
We've seen it, Dad.
I
There's
love
also a
that
cute
line.
little moment before where Marge is in bed with Homer and is trying to cheer him up. And
Uh
it's
huh.
like, you're good at other things like snuggling. Yeah, but none of my friends can watch me. So Burns is
Oh.
also, again, back at the field. He's lashing out and he goes to the hypnotist. He's like, look what you did to my pitcher. I'm going to report you to the American Hypnotic Association. I love it. I love that thing
Did you
exists in
ever
this
see that?
Springfield world.
The American Hypnotic Association.
Yeah, I thought that was fucking hilarious.
Hypnotical is what it needs.
Hypnotical. Sorry, my bad.
I love that line.
And then Strawberry is the only one
Because
who didn't have some wacky incident happen to him, and he's ready to play. So Homer's going to be
it's
riding the bench.
because so Burns is giving this pep talk to everybody because now all of his ringers out, and he's like, "All right, since all the ringers are out, uh, you misfits are in. You hate me. I hate you," which I love. This is expiring big time. Since all the bulletproof I've got so much to remember some things that someone else had told you in your lives that were special to go out there and win. And Homer's like, "All right." He's like, "Not you, Homer. You're riding the pine.
Aww.
Daryl."
I like how also Bart and Lisa see Strawberry taking the field, and Lisa's like,
Yeah.
"We want home run, Homer!" And they both
You
start going,
stink,
Daryl,
Daryl. Daryl. I
Daryl.
mean, I've done this chant many times.
I
We
did
were
it I
alone
did it at the
because I was a
stadium.
Braves fan in New York when I
Oh,
did
I
it.
was just doing it because I'm a Simpsons fan, and Daryl Strawberry was on the field.
Oh, that was the one. So they used to do this in New York for a couple players. There was Daryl, and then our guy Chipper Jones. His real name is Lawrence, or I don't know if it's Lawrence, but his
So
dad's
the
name was
same kind of
Larry.
thing.
Chip off
Yeah.
the old blocks how he got his name, and they would go at Shea Stadium. They go, Larry, Larry. Now he hit like 316 and hit the most home runs he hit in any other ballpark in Shea Stadium, and named his kid Shea. So, but I love that, and the funny line there is they're mocking him. Marge is like, "You're being mean," and Lisa's like, "They're used to it. They're major leaguers. It just rolls off their back." And you see Daryl Strawberry just have a single
Single
tear
tier.
running
Yep.
down his cheek, and that wasn't supposed to be in it. That was not in the script. Um, Strawberry mentioned that to the writer. He was like, "I was interesting when I saw it. I was like, that was in the script." But I mean, like, unlike Canseco, he was like, "No, I have nothing but fond memories of that whole experience out there."
Yeah, it's pretty amazing that 8 out of 9 had a great experience. Uh,
Except for
it,
fucking Canseco, fuck that dude.
yeah. I also so like throughout our final game, we get more baseball jokes. We got the peanut guy throwing. Remember, because you're always throwing peanuts.
I love so and he's like whipping them. And he's like hitting people in the head.
Yeah, I like how he throws one out in the parking lot.
I like
That
it's
was
a
my
car.
favorite.
Um,
And
uh,
so we got Homer and Marge is filming, right? And he's scratching his crotch. And here's a little bit fun
he's
information
like,
about
oh
that.
dear.
Uh, the network didn't like how many times Homer was scratching his crotch, so they forced the studio to just do one scratch. But
Mm,
in promo for a local or a sports game that weekend, I think it was the NFL, they showed that image of Homer scratching his crotch all the time. So
yeah.
like they showed it like multiple times in one broadcast of a sports game,
He's
but
just
only
like,
one time for the actual episode. So it's a little weird that network is like, we can't have this much crotch scratching, and then they use it for promotional material anyway.
it's like he's just laid. Marge is filming him on the VHS. He's laid out on the bench and he's just spread legged. He just starts scratching away at his balls. And she's like, "Oh dear," and puts the camera lens down. And she's like, "Kids, let me know when your father stops scratching himself." Kids,
We'll let you know.
that's a great. That's hilarious.
And we have another
Um,
situation where we have bases loaded. It's the bottom of the ninth, and there's one
well,
person left to bat.
so during this whole thing, we've got the joke of Burns managing the team,
Right.
and it goes throughout. It's all Daryl Strawberry. So the first thing he's like, I need to do some managing here. Like, what would I do if I were some great coach? And he's like, I know, Strawberry hit a home run. He goes, sure thing, Skip. Hits it, and he's like, I told him to do that. I
You
love
sure
that.
did, sir.
And so
Smithers, I'm feeling
Strawberry,
stressed. Massage my brain. Right away, sir.
exactly. But he does that. He has the look of glee. So
Yeah.
Smithers is like massaging the
Yeah.
ideas into his
Yeah.
brain, and he gets that look of glee, and that one's a little like, ooh, like, ooh,
Well, also the eyeballs of Burns when his sculpt is laying
this
like moved around is very
skin
weird.
just moved.
It's very weird.
It's like a Halloween mask or something moving around.
Yeah, a lot of
And
loose skin
so
on that old man.
Strawberry's been the whole game. He's been all of the offense that they've had, and we come to the bottom of the ninth, 2 out, bases loaded, game is tied, and Strawberry's up to the plate, and Homer's like, well, there they go. They're going to win it, and I had nothing to do with it. And Burns is like, well, now what we really need to do is, you there, Strawberry. Good effort today. Hit the showers. He's like, you're pinch hitting for me? And he goes, yes, you see, you're a lefty, and so is the pitcher. I'm going to bring in a right-hander. It's called playing the percentages. It's what smart managers do to win ball games.
But I got 9 home runs today.
He's like, great effort, son. Hit the showers. Simpson, you're in. So So Simpson's getting his shot that he's dying to be the hero in this game, but it all comes to crashing halt because Burns, continuing his legacy as the great managers of all time, is like, all right, Simpson, we're going to go over the signals, the hand signals. For anybody that didn't know, in baseball, they would have hand signals because you can't just like yell things or people know what you're doing. So you come up with like, touch the bill of your cap, run your hand across the chest, touch your belt, and you do it in such an order, and they know whether or not you want them to bunt or where they're going to send the
Steal
runner
a
to steal a
base, continue
base.
to run the base, you know.
That's how they communicate. And but it's relatively simple. It's just four signs or so in a perfect certain order. So because it's extraordinarily like complex. Yeah, it's like if I take the bill of my cap, it means the signal is fake. Uh-huh. If I take it off and dust my hands thusly, got it. If you want a bunt, I'll touch my belt buckle. Not once, not twice, but thrice. Uh, Homer
I
said, he's like, I don't understand a word you
really
say.
have. Homer is kind of like, I wish I had a bag of potato chips right now.
He says, "80
Potato
Homer.
chips.
Got that, Simpson? Yes,
Yes,
sir."
sir.
So here it is. Here it is. The big at bat in a big game, and Homer steps in, and Burns is giving them sign. He's doing like a chicken dance. This ridiculous like
It's
thing
really
where
well
he's going.
animated. It's very
It's
animated.
hilarious.
Yeah.
And Homer's looking at him like, "What the fuck are you doing?" And the pitch comes and it just hits him dead ass in the forehead,
And I
and
love
he's
the
knocked out. Just
sound effect.
drops.
I love the sound effect noise that it makes because it's almost
Yeah,
like it's hollow. You know, like
yeah, yeah. And he
yeah.
falls. I mean, he like falls dead across the plate,
It's
and
almost like a
everybody's cheering because as Lisa says to Marge, she's worrying. She's like, "No, Mom, that's the same as a hit. We won the game." And then you had the big celebration that
and it's the natural again, right? They rip off the
it
natural
is.
again,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know. And I love
And
how
you
the
get
guy like
this
rolls
slow.
Homer off of home plate in
I
slow motion.
thought
Like it's pretty good.
Yeah, I thought he kind of should have had a little bit more struggle moving Homer off the
Oh no,
plate.
he had momentum and his
There you
adrenaline
go.
was pumping
Yeah,
because
I
they
see
just
what you're
won
doing.
the
I got
game.
you. He
Yeah,
rolls him off,
yeah.
and then we get kind of the end, kind of scene of them celebrating the great victory, and it ends with this shot of the 1992 Springfield Power Plant softball team, and all of the players are there. You got Kid Griffey Jr. with his gigantic head. You got would you say Ozzie Smith
Ozzie
was
Smith is like a ghost in the upper left-hand corner.
like he's
Mike
from
Sosha
the
is on a
another.
bed and he looks like he's about to be dead. Homer is passed out face first into the
And
dirt.
Homer is laid across the whole scene,
Yeah.
still unconscious. And
Clemens
everybody's
is
like,
like he has like the
thumbs up.
chicken wing arms. Clemens does, you know, like so everybody is still with their ailment. And like Jose Canseco looks like he went through a fire because it's like things are charred. It's pretty funny.
That last scene is an absolute classic. It's just the last image. It's just hilarious because I don't know if you've been a part of that picture. I have one on my wall actually from the softball team we had at Media Arts Lab, and and the image of Homer, the hero, is just not having gone to a hospital or anything,
Yeah.
clearly concussed, but is just laid out face down.
It's pretty good. And then we get a song by Terry Cashman, who has a talking baseball song, but he made a new one for this one that plays over the credits. And so I apologize, listeners, because this is 2 episodes in a row where Josh is going to be singing, and you're just going to have to deal with it. So here
And
we go.
1 and 2.
Well, Mr. Burns had done it. The power plant had won it, with Roger Clemens clucking all the while. Mike Sosha's tragic illness made us smile, while Wayboggs lay unconscious on the barroom tile. We're talking softball, from Maine to San Diego, talking softball.
Softball.
From Mattingly and Canseco, can Griffey's grotesquely swollen jaw. See Saxon is running with the law. We're talking Homer,
Homer.
Ozzy and the
Ozzy
Straw.
and the Straw. We're talking.
I
That's
love that
wonderful.
song. I really do. I'm not a big baseball fan like anymore, but I still get like images of the ballpark and eating the hot
Oh
dogs
yeah.
and the ice creams and cheering and catching a ball and all that other kind of fun
That's
stuff.
something I do think is lost a lot is some of the songs like Casey at the Bat, like we all
Sure.
heard that growing up, and songs like this. Yeah, absolutely part of my childhood.
Nice, man. Well, why don't you give us your final thoughts first because you picked the episode.
Um, all right. Well, I mean, I think that this, really does relate to people and who are specifically ardent fans of baseball, most as Schwartzwelder is, as it was kind of written for. So the jokes just pop all the more. Being such a big baseball fan, I consider myself very lucky that I had the great announcers again in Atlanta. There's 162 games, each of them 3 hours or so long, and the knowledge they shared about Three Fingers Brown and I never heard of Cap Anson before, to be honest, but like Honus Wagner and all of the players throughout history, and they would talk about all that stuff, gave me all of that context that I needed, the nuances, all of those things, and it's clear there was a love for that in this episode, and it was so deep. It was likened to like a Ken Burns documentary, and I love that.
Nice. Well, I've always enjoyed this episode. It's from a time when I followed sports closely and had a large baseball collection, as we talked about. So it's fun to see stars, on my favorite show with the wacky situations and the fact that they're willing to play ball, literally, like pun intended,
One
with
hundred
the
percent.
with the writers is fantastic. And the writers
Mm-hmm.
did do a good job of giving each player a unique joke or trait to make them stand out in a crowd.
Mm-hmm.
And I love Mr. Burns. Conan is quoted as saying,
Mm-hmm.
like, if I could just write only for Mr. Burns when I was on The Simpsons, that's all he would do.
I was gonna
And
say, is this episode is Harry Shearer talking to himself?
yeah, a lot of it is. And just the history lines in there,
Yeah,
it's just hilarious to
yeah.
me. So it's also capped off nicely with the team photo and song over the credits. It's a
Oh
very,
man.
very fun episode. And it's amazing that they had so many guest stars and they like
Mm-hmm.
made the plot work and everybody had their like 5 minutes of fame. And you were still able to kind of tell a story with a complete arc as well.
100% arc, and they thought this was going to be a terrible episode. They
Yeah,
were
they were very
worried about
nervous
getting
about it.
fired,
Yeah.
and it had a beautiful arc, and it's hilarious.
Yeah. Well, great job, you.
Great job, me.
Robin, do you hear that sound?
What's that, Josh?
Well, then you know what time it is. It's the
Crusty
Crusty
brand
Brand
seal of
Seals of Approval.
approval.
Yay! So, what is your Crusty Brand Seal of Approval for this episode?
I give this episode a 4.
Oh,
I am really worried that when we get into like later season episodes, which I hope very much that we do, and think that we should be work some in, that we're gonna lose some of our abilities to like properly scale these things. But I mean, this is 4 or 5 material for me. I love this episode. I think it has a wonderful arc. Some of the jokes in it are really, really, really brilliant. Having it on the background, you catch things and you just laughing at them. I think some of the other ones are a bit more intelligent jokes, perhaps, or some of the ones that are more in favor. But this could easily be a 5. I'm giving it a 4, maybe arbitrarily.
yeah, I'm wondering if you're being too hard on it because you don't want to give every episode a 5.
It just may fucking be because I
Yeah,
love this episode, as you could
because
tell.
I'm giving it a 5.
Yeah.
I'm 5 all day long.
Well,
It
good.
was
We
such
don't
a
have to match. I chose
yeah.
it. I give it 4. The controversy reigns.
And also, like, this was one of the first times that they were trying to like draw people to actually look Simpsonized, so that was a big
Hmm.
challenge. Having to
Yes.
record audio separately and then editing it together in a convincing way. So
Oh
I
yeah,
think it's both like the technical side of things
yeah.
as well as just the show and episode itself.
It's technically getting 9 famous guest stars to do an episode at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, they went through a lot to get this episode done.
Nice.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, that's a wrap for Sacrilicious with Robin and Snurts. We hope you enjoyed this episode. If you're feeling generous, then please leave a 5-star review with a few sentences. We are currently on Spotify, YouTube, and Apple Podcast. My shout-outs for this week, I want to say thanks to Steve and Judy for hosting game night this past week. It was a lot of fun. Board games and card games are something that's kind of fell by the wayside after the pandemic for me, and it was good to experience something that I used to do on the regular. I also want to express my thoughts and best wishes for everyone impacted by Hurricane Helene. I'm grateful my friends or family are doing okay after this devastating storm. And of course, Dr. Boxford, the raddest fan of them all.
The doctor.
Want to hear more from your old pal Snurts? Then check out the PlayStation Experience on your podcast platform of choice. I can also be found on most of the things at Lord_Snurts. Robin, what do you got for us this week?
Well, I'll just try to do this without getting emotional, but Asheville, North Carolina, is along with most of Western North Carolina, was really devastated by Hurricane Helene. In addition to the massive flooding that occurred in Asheville, where I spent half of my life, the winds came and also caused 8 or 9 tornadoes in a relatively small area of Western North Carolina. The trees were uprooted by the dozens, massive trees, because the rain had softened all of the dirt around their roots, and the scene is truly devastating there. My brother and brother-in-law went up Saturday, the day after this happened. We have a cabin in Asheville that was cut in half by a large poplar tree. My cousins had gone up to my uncle's house to try and keep it from getting damaged by water. They didn't know that the trees were going to do this, and got stuck there. Over the course of 18 hours, they were cutting themselves out of the trees that are all fallen across the roads, so they could go home to. They live in Charlotte and elsewhere. In Miami, and we took all of the valuables out of the destruction of the house and got them safe and that sort of thing. Our neighbor came and cut the tree off of our house for us, spent the entire day just cutting the tree off of our house, just out of the kindness of his heart. So it's wonderful to see the community coming together there, but make no mistake, it was devastating. The floods tore down plastic factories just on the top of town. All of the water in town is now toxic, and the mud that flushed in with the floods is toxic. And it's going to be a really long, really challenging rebuild process. So I encourage anybody who can to please do what you can to help Western North Carolina, because it took a wallop. I spent half my life there. It's one of the places I love most in the world.
Do you love it as much as baseball?
Way.
All right.
Fuck baseball. I mean, you know what happens in the playoffs? Every team's fan base gets fucking pissed off except for one. Like, that's the fucking playoffs.
All right. Well, best of luck with all that, man. Like I said, sorry your family was affected by it, and good luck with the cleanup process.
I'm just glad
out there.
everybody's safe. You know?
Yeah. Same with me. Like, I got family in that area too, as we discussed, and I'm very grateful that everybody is doing okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, so our next episode is coming out on Sunday, October 27th. So that's right around Halloween time. And I picked Treehouse of Horror 5 from season 6. So I hope you guys are getting ready for some shinning, because I know I am.
It's the shinning.
Shit up. You want to get shit? So until next time, folks, smell you later, true believers.
See y'all. They sure do, Skip.
I'm in danger!
Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed.